Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for today's acrylic painting tutorial. These are the colours that I'm using, but you could use any colours that you like. I've started by putting a little bit of white at the top of the canvas, and now I'm mixing my cadmium yellow, cadmium red and a little bit of white to make a really nice golden yellow colour. And then I'm painting that on the background, which will be the sun that's coming through the trees. Now I'm mixing some white and ultramarine. I'll use this to plan out where the shadows are going to be, mark out the road that's going to go into the distance, and just get a general shape of where everything's going to be. I'm using a large filbert brush, but you could use any large brush to get the base coat on. The left hand side will be a little bit lighter than the right hand side because there are more shadows on the right side. So I'll keep the left side a little bit lighter and a little bit softer. Now I'm marking out my sun using the same golden yellow and some white. Now I've mixed some ultramarine and some cadmium red and a little lilac, and I'm going to block out the shadow areas on each side of the painting. It'll be darkest at the front of the painting in the foreground, and I'll add white so it gets a little bit lighter as it goes back into the distance. And again, it'll be a little bit darker on the right hand side, a little bit lighter on the left. And then just blending that in. Add a little white if you need to. I've mixed a really nice violet and ultramarine colour together, and we can start adding some of our shadows and building up the shapes of where everything's going to be on either side of the road. These colours will also show through when we do glaze other colours over the top as we go. Instead of using black or a really dark colour, I've mixed cadmium red and ultramarine together, and that will give me a fairly dark colour for the trees. You can thin it down a little bit with some matte medium or water, and we'll put in the outline of the tree trunks. You can use a round brush or a flat brush, whatever's easiest. We'll make them darker in the foreground, and then we'll thin the paint, add a little bit of white so they're fainter and lighter as they go into the distance. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to come over the top with our foliage and leaves anyway. Now I've done the same on the other side. So I'm taking the golden yellow colour again, and I'm going to use a fan brush to add a very light indication of foliage in the very, very distant area. It's only a little bit darker than the yellow that is the background colour. Then I'm going to add a little bit of pale violet to the yellow, and I'm going to bring that in on top using the same motion with my fan brush, just twisting it around and giving a bit of an indication of foliage. Don't worry if you go over the tree trunks that you've already painted, because we can add those in again later if we want to. When we've done that on both sides, we'll then come in with our blue. So it's just sort of a medium toned blue. It's ultramarine again. I've added a little bit of violet to it. And again, we'll use our fan brush and add in some leaves and foliage on either side. And then with the very darkest blue that I made earlier with the cadmium red and ultramarine, we can add in some leaves right in the very foreground. Now I'm taking my small round brush. I'm using a size 0, but you could use a 1 or a 2, and I'm going to just add in our details in the background. At this point I'm tidying everything up, adding a little detail here and there, making sure that the tree trunks sit nicely into the ground. Just bringing the painting together a little bit. I've mixed a brown colour using cadmium yellow, cadmium red and ultramarine, and now again with my round brush I'm adding sort of a silhouette of some leaves right at the very tips. So I'm using the brown to give an indication of some leaves and foliage just where the sun would be shining through the trees. And I've put some fir tree branches in the foreground, so I'm going to add some snow onto the top of those. I'm not using pure white, I'm using a light blue instead, because this side of the painting is still going to be in shadow. You can use a flat brush and get a nice effect of snow on top of the fir tree branches. Then on the left hand side I've got my golden yellow again. I've made it a little bit darker this time by adding ultramarine, and I'm dabbing that on to give a dappled sunlight effect in the trees. And some lovely golden highlights on the tree trunks. Now I'm coming in with white and a very pale yellow, and I'm doing the same again. I'm going to add in my sun again. It doesn't matter if you go over the top of the trees and the leaves that you've already done, because that'll just show the sun shining through. And I'm using the golden yellow and white again. I'm painting in a sort of circular motion to give the indication of the sun coming through the trees. I've thinned down my cadmium red and cadmium yellow with some water and matte medium, and I'm putting a glaze over the top with this lovely warm orange colour. Again, it just gives an impression of that dappled light coming through the trees. I'm not doing it all over the right hand side because the foreground and the front is still in shadow, just at the top where the sun would hit the trees. Here are some of the videos that you might like to watch next. See you next time.